Illinois is a state shaped by rivers, ambition, fire, immigration, and unstoppable growth. Long before skyscrapers dominated the Chicago skyline, this land was home to some of the greatest indigenous civilizations in North America. Thousands of years ago, advanced cultures settled along the Mississippi and Illinois rivers, building vast communities, ceremonial mounds, and complex societies. The most remarkable of these was Cahokia, a city so massive that at its height, around the year 1100, it held more people than London. Its enormous earthen pyramid, Monk's Mound, still stands today as a silent reminder that Illinois was once home to a civilization with engineering skills, political systems, and social structures unmatched anywhere else in ancient North America. These early societies grew along fertile river valleys, farming corn, beans, and squash while maintaining trade networks stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Over time, the Mississippian culture declined, but new indigenous nations emerged to shape Illinois' landscape. The Illiniwek Confederation, the Potawatomi, the Miami, the Sauk, the Meskwaki, and the Kickapoo were among the many nations who thrived here. They lived through complex alliances, rivalries, and rich traditions passed from generation to generation. The rivers served not just as transportation routes, but as lifelines that connected people, stories, and cultures across the land. When Europeans began arriving in the 1600s, everything changed. French explorers Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet were the first Europeans to travel through Illinois, guided by native people who understood the river systems intimately. Marquette and Joliet recognized the strategic power of the Illinois River, which connected the Great Lakes to the Mississippi. To them, it became clear that Illinois was not just wilderness. It was a gateway between the North and the South, a crossroads for trade and communication. The French established missions, fur trading posts, and small settlements, integrating into native economic networks rather than trying to replace them. Their presence reshaped the region but did not dominate it. But the French era in Illinois was short-lived. After the French and Indian War ended in 1763, France ceded control of this territory to Britain. British rule was more aggressive, more controlling, and far less cooperative with indigenous nations. Tensions rose as British policies restricted trade and settlement, pushing the region closer to conflict. And when the American Revolution erupted, Illinois unexpectedly became part of the story. The daring military leader George Rogers Clark led a small militia into the Illinois country, capturing key towns like Kaskaskia and Vincennes. These victories helped secure American claims to the Northwest Territory after the war ended. With the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783, Illinois officially came under the control of the newly formed United States. For indigenous nations, this signaled a new era of pressure as waves of settlers poured into the Midwest. The early years of American settlement were marked by both opportunity and violence. Conflicts erupted as the U.S. government forced tribes into treaties that stripped them of land in exchange for promises that were often broken. Despite resistance, including during Tecumseh's War and the War of 1812, Native nations were gradually pushed from Illinois through military force and forced removal. By 1818, Illinois had grown enough in population to become the 21st state. Statehood opened the door for rapid development. Settlers arrived from Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, and later from across Europe. The southern part of the state grew first, with agriculture expanding across fertile prairie soil. Yet the most transformative growth was still to come. Growth tied to transportation. Illinois' central location made it the perfect place to connect the expanding United States. Roads, ferries, and steamboats began linking communities, but a larger vision was forming. A waterway that could unify the entire region. That dream became reality with the completion of the Illinois and Michigan Canal in 1848. Stretching from the Chicago River to the Illinois River, The canal linked the Great Lakes to the Mississippi. Suddenly, Chicago wasn't a small frontier town. It became the key connection point between the eastern states and the heart of the continent. Goods, crops, lumber, and manufactured products flowed through Illinois like never before. The canal turned Chicago into a booming gateway city, attracting merchants, laborers, and visionaries who saw its potential. The arrival of railroads pushed Illinois even further ahead. By the mid-1800s, Chicago had become the rail capital of the United States. Trains linked the city to New York, St. Louis, New Orleans, and San Francisco. The new railway systems created an economic engine that transformed Illinois from farmland to industrial powerhouse. Chicago's stockyards began processing millions of livestock annually, earning the city a global reputation. Grain from the Midwest passed through its elevators, and steel mills and factories filled the skyline with smoke. Illinois became the beating heart of America's growing industrial empire. But rapid growth also brought major challenges. In 1871, the Great Chicago Fire burned through the city with unimaginable speed. Fueled by wooden buildings, dry conditions, and powerful winds, the fire destroyed over 3 square miles of the city and left more than 100,000 people homeless. Rather than give up, Chicago launched one of the greatest rebuilding campaigns in world history. Architects invented new techniques, including the use of steel frames, which led to the birth of the modern skyscraper. Chicago rose from the ashes stronger than before, ready to change architecture forever. By the early 1900s, Illinois was a melting pot of cultures. Immigrants arrived from Ireland, Germany, Italy, Poland, Sweden, and Eastern Europe, bringing languages, foods, and traditions that filled neighborhoods with diversity. African Americans migrating from the South during the Great Migration transformed Chicago into a major center of Black culture. Jazz and blues flourished on the city's South Side, shaping American music for generations. Illinois became a cultural powerhouse where ideas mixed, clashed, and grew into entirely new movements. But with diversity came tension. Industrialization created harsh working conditions. Long hours and low wages. Workers organized strikes and formed unions to fight for dignity and safety. Illinois became a battleground for labor rights. Events like the Haymarket Affair in 1886, where a peaceful labor protest turned violent, became defining moments in the global labor movement. These struggles helped shape modern work laws and strengthened union power across the nation. The early 20th century brought another iconic chapter: Prohibition. When alcohol was banned in the United States, it didn't stop drinking. It created a massive underground economy. Chicago became the center of bootlegging, speakeasies, and organized crime. The most notorious figure of the era was Al Capone, whose gang operations controlled liquor distribution across the city. Shootouts, corruption, and secret deals filled the streets. Despite the violence, this era became legendary, shaping movies, books, and popular culture for decades. During the Great Depression, Illinois suffered deeply as factories closed, unemployment soared, and families struggled to survive. But federal programs through the New Deal helped restore hope. Workers built parks, roads, and public buildings still used today. When World War II began, Illinois factories roared back to life, producing military equipment, vehicles, and supplies that fueled the Allied victory. The wartime boom brought jobs, population growth, and a renewed sense of purpose. After the war, suburban growth transformed the state. Highways, schools, and suburban neighborhoods expanded rapidly. Chicago remained the cultural and economic center, but cities like Springfield, Peoria, Rockford, and Champaign-Urbana also grew into important hubs. Illinois became a state of both bustling cities and peaceful farmland, a dual identity reflected in its politics, economy, and culture. The mid-1900s also marked the rise of the civil rights movement. African American communities fought for fair housing, equal education, and voting rights. Chicago became a focal point of racial activism. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. marched through the city's streets, challenging discriminatory practices and demanding justice. These efforts led to new laws and greater political representation, reshaping Illinois society. As the 20th century progressed, Illinois became a leader in science, technology, and higher education. The University of Chicago pioneered groundbreaking research in physics, economics, and medicine. Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory, advanced particle physics. Corporations in engineering, banking, agriculture, and communication strengthened the state's economic foundation. Illinois was no longer just a transportation hub. It was becoming an intellectual and technological powerhouse. Yet challenges remained. Industrial decline affected cities like Rockford, Decatur, and East St. Louis. Financial crises and political corruption damaged public trust. Chicago faced issues of crime, segregation, and inequality that continue into the present. Still, Illinois adapted, embracing new industries like renewable energy, advanced manufacturing, aerospace, and biotechnology. The state continued shaping America through innovation and resilience. Today, Illinois stands at the crossroads of American history and modern transformation. Its cultural impact is felt worldwide, from Chicago's skyline and deep dish pizza to its music, architecture, and sports legacy. The state's farmlands feed millions, while its universities produce leaders, scientists, and thinkers who influence the globe. Illinois has lived through ancient civilizations, European colonization, Civil War politics, explosive growth, devastating fires, crime empires, and social revolutions. Yet, through every challenge, Illinois reinvents itself. It is a story of ambition, diversity, struggle, and triumph. A story built by indigenous nations, French explorers, industrial workers, immigrants, activists, and visionaries. A story that continues today as Illinois shapes the nation through culture, science, and innovation. In the end, Illinois is more than a state. It is a living example of America's evolution, a testament to the power of rebuilding, and a symbol of how challenges can forge greatness.